let's see if we can implement our hero character into our circle game. First of all, let me remind you where we are in our project. So right now we have a certain number of circles. I think we ended up with 35 that are randomly coming in and out of the screen and following a path across the screen. And these are eventually going to be our circles that we want to either avoid or eat depending on the size of our hero. So what we're going to do in step 2 is something like this, where we introduce this red circle with the green plus sign in it in the middle. That's going to be our hero. That's the character that we will control with the mouse, and we will run around the screen and we'll try to eat the little ones and avoid the big ones. Now right now you can see I don't have that part going yet. Today our goal is just to get the hero onto the screen and be able to control it with the mouse. And our code that we're currently working on is in this screen, so I just want to have that set up, and whenever we want to see our progress, we'll just refresh that. Back to our editor. Remember, I'm programming, we're writing my code using Visual Studio Code. I tried to make the font a little bigger so it'd be better for the video, but we'll also give you a paper copy of this one too. I want to make a couple comments about style.css. We did make some adjustments to this file. I took out the margin line altogether, and I did also fix an error I had in the last video with the line items. I just had 2 colons in there, so make sure you take that out. This is what your CSS file should look like. We just basically have 3 lines: display flex, justify content center, and line item center. Now on to our script. So when we did step 1, we put a lot of code in place to get these circles appearing on the screen. We have our circle variable, or circles variable, which is keeping track of our collection of circles, our array. And we run a setup function to set the canvas up. We have our draw function, which currently just draws the circles. And most of the code that we entered in step 1 had to do with defining this circle object. Now we're going to add a hero object to our code as well. So I just want to start putting in some boundaries here that I use to sort of make it easy for me as a human to find my code. So I'll put a little comment in here saying this is our circle object setup, or our circle object definition, if you will. I gotta spell that right. Circle object definition, and I'll separate that with a couple of dash star lines here. And down here at the end of this code, this was our reset function for the game, and we'll just call this gameplay functions. We may have other functions that we'll be writing that will also affect the play of the game. But what I'll do here at the end of the circle prototype for off canvas, for that off canvas method, let's go ahead and set up a hero object. So I'll put a little divider in here, and I'll say this is our hero object definition. And we'll start with a constructor function. Now our hero, it's not going to be set up the way we did our circles. We instantly called the renew function when we set up circles. But for our hero, let's go ahead and set some properties. First of all, when I create a new hero, I want to know where he's going to appear on the screen. And so our hero constructor function will receive X and Y coordinates. So when you call this constructor, you have to tell it where you want the hero to show up on your canvas. And you insert that in your parameter list. Once we receive X and Y, we need to add them to the object. So this dot X will equal X. And this dot Y will equal Y. Now you saw the hero character. It's just a circle. So it needs a diameter. And we decided that the variable that we defined earlier, dfactor, was going to help us keep track of the current size of our hero. So let's go ahead and set the diameter to dfactor. And then the other thing that this hero needs to keep track of is how many circles he or she, it has eaten. And so we're going to add a circle counter. I'm just going to call it this dot circles. Or if you want to call it circles eaten, maybe that might be a better description. We'll start at 0 there. So circles eaten is going to start at 0. And then as the hero acquires smaller circles, that will get incremented. So this dot circles eaten is what we're going to use. Or you can use a different variable name if you want. Just like our circles, a hero needs to know how to draw itself on the screen. So did we call that show in the other? Yeah, we call it show. Let's call it show here too. So we'll do hero.show. We're going to make a prototype function. Hero.prototype.show. It does not need to receive any variables, any parameters, so we'll just leave the parentheses closed there. Since this is an assignment statement, we do need to have a semicolon at the end. And let's see, what do we want this thing to do? We want to draw our hero on the screen. So we need a body, which is an ellipse. I'll just put that code in. And you can decide what your fill is going to be. I think mine was red, so let's just fill 255, 0, 0. And if you don't like that color, you can make adjustments there. And then we're going to draw the ellipse, which is our circle. And that ellipse is this dot x, that's the x coordinate. This dot y is the y coordinate. This dot d is the width. Oops, this dot d. And the height is this dot d. Right? Since it's a circle, those are equal. So our hero is going to have this body that we'll draw. But you notice I also had those stripes on there, just to differentiate from the other circles on the game. So I just decided to draw the stripes in. So here's how I did the stripes. My stripes were some sort of blue-green color, and that color I chose was 0, 100, 100, and you can play with that if you want. But those are the colors that I used. And then I just did 2 like rectangles in the middle of the circle. So to get the first rectangle, I did this dot x. That's the x coordinate. That's the center of the circle. So I want to move it to the edge of the circle. So I have to subtract off the diameter, or actually the radius, which is half of the diameter. So this dot d divided by 2. So I'm starting to the left, and I'm going to draw this across to the right. The y coordinate is going to be this dot y minus 2, because I don't want it to be very thick. I think my width is like 4 pixels. So I'll start at this dot y minus 2. And then my length of my rectangle is just the diameter itself. And my height is 4. And I have the wrong word down here. If you've been yelling at the screen for a while, that's my fault because of the code completion. All right, so that's the rectangle to make the horizontal part of the plus sign. And then let's see if I can, this time I'm going to make this dot x minus 2 for the starting x. And again, that's just going to be 4 pixels total. And then we'll start this dot y minus half of the diameter. Can't type and talk at the same time. And we'll make the width of this thing 4 and the height this dot d. And that draws the plus sign, the stripes in our hero. Okay, so we've drawn this guy. Let's see if we can get him to show up on the screen. Even though we've defined what a hero is, we have not created one yet. So let's add to our list of global variables a variable to keep track of our hero. I'm using a lowercase variable, hero, lowercase h here, to define my instance of my hero. The constructor function down in the code, remember we use a capital letter for hero there. That's our constructor function. Now, when we start our game, we call the reset game function, and that's where we want to create our hero. So I'm going to say lowercase hero equals new And this is going to be a hero object. Oops, spell it right. And remember, we got to set it the coordinates of the starting location of our hero. And we want that to be in the middle of our game. So I'm going to do game width over 2, because that's halfway across. And then I'm going to do game height over 2. And that's halfway up and down. And that should get the hero to appear. All right, so I'm going to save this file, and let's just see. Oh no, it's not going to appear yet, is it? We created the hero, but we didn't tell it to show itself yet. And we'll do that in our draw function. So I'll start with just doing a hero.show. Now, when you are, oops, I got to go up further here. Here's my draw function. When you're drawing all your characters on your screen, you need to decide the order that they're going to get drawn. If I draw the hero first in the code, then the circles will be drawn over the top of it. If you draw the hero last in the code, then the hero will be over top of the circles. So if you'll look at the completed project that I did here, you can see that my hero goes behind my circles. And that's just temporary because those circles would all be killing me anyway. But that means that I entered the hero code before the circle code. So I'll put showing the hero in right here. So I just do hero.show. And right now we haven't told it how to move. So that hero is just going to be in the center of our code. And it's not going to do anything. Here's my current code. I will hit refresh. And there's my hero. Right now I'm not controlling it. My mouse is just controlling the mouse pointer. But we've got it showing on the screen, so that's great news. To control our hero, we'll need to add an event handler function. And we're going to start by just coding this for the browser of a computer, not for mobile or anything. So we need to add in the mouse handler. And I actually don't see my mouse handler code here, so I'm going to have to write this on the fly. Okay, so where are we going to put the mouse handler? Let's put that up here underneath our draw function. I'll add my mouse event handler. Remember that, oh no, I don't need to do that. I'm not grabbing any mouse clicks yet. So this is even easier than my brain was thinking. When I draw the hero, I just need to update its location. And I'm just going to use mouse X and mouse Y to do that. So you can hear the wheels cranking in my brain here because I'm trying to figure out where I did that. Huh. I may need to pause my video to look at some code here. All I want to do is show it and then update its location. So maybe I'll just do that right before I draw it. Yeah, duh. Okay, so right before I draw the hero, let's just update its X and Y coordinates. So hero.x is just going to be mouse X. This video is way longer than it needed to be because my brain stopped for a minute. And hero.y is going to be mouse Y. And so what we do, oops, let's set it equal there. Before we draw or show our hero, we set it to the coordinates of the mouse. So I'm just going to say move and display hero. This is our English, so we remember what we're doing so we don't look like an idiot like the guy talking on the video. All right. So we reset the X and Y coordinates to the coordinates of the mouse, and then we show the hero. All right, so let's save that and see if that updated things. I'm going to have to refresh to update the code. And okay, now we're in good shape. So now my hero follows my mouse. But you know what's annoying? That cursor arrow that is attached to my mouse. Notice in the finished product that I created over here, I've turned off the cursor arrow. And that's what we're going to do. And then we'll wrap this video up. So right now we've got the hero following our cursor, but we don't want the cursor. We just want to be able to move it around. All right, let's go back to our code. And the last thing we need to do is just tell it not to have the cursor. And p5.js has a handy little function that's built just to do that. So right after my no stroke code in my setup function, I'm going to put no cursor. And when you call that function, if you spell it right, that just turns off the arrow whenever you're in the canvas. So I'll save that. I'll update the code here by refreshing, and now we've got it. The arrow cursor is gone, and my hero is wandering around my canvas just waiting for us to tell it how to eat things and, of course, how to die if it gets hit by a bigger circle. Okay, so that's enough for video 2. Let me just remind you what we did, and then I'm going to shut her down here. We introduced a hero variable that'll keep track of our instance of our hero. That's a global variable, so I assigned it up there. Or I didn't assign it, I just created it up there. In the setup function, we simply turned off the cursor whenever we're moving the mouse around the canvas. In the draw function, we simply added this code here, which was just to update the location of our hero and then to show it on the screen. And then most of the code that we added to our program had to do with the constructor function and the show function. And you can see that we put a remark in here to kind of show us where that code was. The constructor function simply receives the starting x and y coordinates and assigns them to the object. We assign the width of the circle to this dot d, and then we created a variable that will keep track of how many circles we've eaten, which is 0 right now. We also told this thing how to draw itself on the screen. We have the body code and then the 2 extra stripes that differentiate it from the rest of the circles. Finally, in our game reset function, whenever we start the game, we want to make a new hero. And that hero is going to start in the center of the screen. So that's what we did. Okay, I think that's enough for this video. Let's get this thing working before we move on to step 3. As always, take care, and I'll see you soon.